Oh.
Shame, we kind of, Lance, we want to see you too.
They don't want to see me. There, that's perfect.
Why don't you sit right here?
Okay. We're live.
We are.
All right. Hi, everybody. All those folks online. Hello. And I'm going to just sit, so I hope that's okay. We're going to talk today a little bit about new construction, and there's different things of new construction, different scenarios, and we're going to hit each of them just a little bit to talk about how you can be helpful. Because, you know, I've had agents come to me before, and they're like, you know, my people want to build a house. What am I supposed to do? You know, because they're not knowledgeable about this or knowledgeable about that. And so you, as an agent, you know, on the buyer side, you're like all over helping them with anything else, and then it becomes new construction. You're like, I don't know what to do. Oh my God, I'm going to be no help whatsoever. I have nothing to add to the deal. You know, why in the world would they pay me to do anything? So those are things that we're just going to kind of go through a few different scenarios to help with that. We're going to start with the toughest one, the hardest one, is the one from scratch. And that's the one where, you know, you're looking for land, and then you got to find a builder, and then you got to, you know, decide on a plan, and you got to set things up, and, you know, all this stuff has to go on. And you can really be a fish out of water when that's going on. You also get buyers that have a tendency to be a little bit more independent when they want to do that. You know, they got their own vision of, you know, this land and this house and how it's going to go and what they can do. And you may even get the, you know, the person who just wants to buy land because they want to be the general contractor. In most cases, that's like representing yourself in court, you know. It's typically it's a foolish endeavor. You usually don't save any money by being your own general contractor. And the reason behind that is that builders who out there in the business, they have relationships with framers and suppliers and drywall people and electricians and plumbers and that kind of thing, HVAC people. And they have relationships with them, and they are a repeat customer for all of those contractors. So they tend to want to take better care of them, you know, do the right thing, that kind of stuff. That being said, I've got a, you know, set of friends, and they have done it twice. Now, he is a contractor, electrical contractor, and he does a lot of trade-off with a lot of people and stuff. And he does a good job. You know, he built a beautiful home, but he did, you know, subcontract that out. And just as an awareness, as good as he did, they found later they were like, something's wrong, and you know, with this one side of their house. And they go do a little testing and a little research, and long story short, what they found was that the contractor who did the outside of the house did not seal it properly. Water was able to get in, and they had mold in between their walls. You know, and no way of going back, and it had been a period of time too, but no way of going back and tell the contractor and going, what the hell? You know, at least have, you know, the ability to sue or anything, because, you know, how do you sue somebody that's done something for a barter type deal? So anyway, so we're going to start with that. We're going to just talk a few things about that. And it's a quote that I found and I really like a lot. When you start working with somebody, whether it's from the beginning deciding on the lot, or if it's from, you know, this builder has a lot in this area, or if it's partially finished, foundation is in already, you still have this. You decide what your needs are, and then you build to fit those needs. If you keep that premise in mind, you'll tend to stay a little closer to budget, and you'll think about things up front. That's the biggest thing, is to think about things up front, not as you go along. Oh, somebody's calling in with a question. Fortunately, that wasn't the case. So let's say, start at the beginning. Somebody calls and they're like, hey, we want to build a house, want to find some land, and want to put some things together. And this will lead into a question that I did have text to me. I had one person text a question to me, if I could find it. Maybe it was email. Can't tell. Is Michelle chiming in, because she's the one that sent the question?
She hasn't said anything.
Okay, well.
Want me to ask her?
Yeah, because I don't know if she emailed it.
There's so many different ways to get a hold of you.
Yes, maybe it's ahead of all this. Oh, here it is. I found it. Sorry, Michelle. So this question was asked of her recently, and it's like, who are the best builders? Where should we check to make sure that the builder does good business? And if the builder says he can build your house in 90 days, what should you be thinking there? So we'll incorporate that in to the discussion. So first, you talk about land. And so these people are serious. They want to get a piece of ground. They want to build a house, either get a builder and do it, or GC their own, whatever that is. But you start with the land. You have to have a full sit-down interview. You need to know what their end product, end goal is. So you need to know something about their lifestyle, what they're doing. Like, are they building a ranch-style home? Are they building a two-story? Do they have family? Are they buying excess ground because they want a few acres for something? Do they just want a lot in town, but they just want to have more control? Do they have some ideas of that? So you get a feel for what they're doing. Because when we get into lot, the first thing you look at for a lot, look at orientation. Okay, so when you look at a lot and you put a house on there, whether it be ranch, split level, split foyer, two-story, 1.5-story, whatever that is, when you look at that lot, the orientation of that lot is going to dictate a lot. First, how do they live? Are they close to retirement, or are they early morning people, like get up and have a cup of coffee, sit on the deck, enjoy that? Do they want a swimming pool sometime in the future? Those kinds of things got to come out, because if the lot is facing east, that means the back of the lot is going to be to the west. That means it's going to get hot afternoon sun and that kind of stuff. Same thing north or south. You have to think about that. Where's the light coming in? Where are your windows going to be? Where's your deck going to be? What's your lifestyle like? How's that going to work for them? And as I thought through that, my dream was always a south-southeast facing lot. I wanted to be, or an east-southeast, I'm sorry. I wanted to be east with a little tilt to the south, so that I got really good morning sun, that kind of thing. But then as the sun got up, noon and after, then I started getting shading areas in the back of the home, on the deck, the patio, whatever it might be, because that, in my mind, fit what I liked, so that, because I'm not somebody, my wife will go out and lay in the sun. I mean, literally lay, it's like 112 degrees. And she loves it. And I'm like, no way. I either have to be doing something or I'm not going out there. So you got to think about that orientation, that kind of thing. Once you think orientation, okay, how's this going to work? That may have some input on your plan, you know, what you put on the back of the home, on the style, because you have family rooms on the side, you have family rooms on the back, you have master bedrooms that are front and back, side to side, so you got to think about all that. And this is all discussion with the people. This isn't you making decisions or just saying, what do you want? This is discussion that you got to have with them. And if you're doing this, trust me, they're going to go, oh my goodness, I never thought about that. It's a great thing that we have this agent helping us, you know. So then you got to look at, say, okay, is it, you know, is the property conducive to walkout or daylight? Or is it just going to be egress because it's flat? And maybe that's what they want. I mean, you get people, like, I'm always amazed by it, but people who want an absolutely flat lot. You know, I'm like, ugh. But some people they want a flat lot. They want to be able to just walk around and mow it. They don't want any hills. They don't want any contours. They don't want any of that. So you have to understand what's going on with that. You know, and if they like a little light, if they're planning on finishing their basement, maybe daylight is perfect for them because it doesn't have the full, you know, 7-foot plus drop front to back that's required for a walkout. And if they want totally flat, then of course it's egress windows. And when you're planning, you got to think about that because you have to plan for the basement being finished, even though maybe they're not finishing it right now. So you got to think, okay, how many egress windows do we need? Are we looking at a future bedroom downstairs, so we need an extra? Or are we just looking at, you know, 2 or 3 across the back because it's a full walkout, so the whole back of the home is exposed and the sides come down and level at the back? Or is it the fourth kind where you have to do retaining walls, you know, on the sides to force that extra 2 or 3 feet to get that walkout door in? So you got to understand those and talk about that and see what's going on. So that's the lot thing. You just got to have enough information that you gain in your interview to understand what might be a good lot. Okay. So then once you get to the lot, you should have enough information about styles and those kinds of things. Quick thing on pricing. It used to be, back in the day, back when I was, you know, younger, for a long time it held true that lot value tended to be somewhere around 17% of the total package when it was finished. And then we started moving and we got to where it was, okay, 20% of lot value is the total package. And so if you bought a, you know, $100,000 lot, you're going to have a $500,000 house, give or take, you know. Well, because the last few years we've had such a shortage of development and lots and that kind of thing, we're actually reaching the point where lot value is starting to attain 25% of the total package. So you have to keep that in mind that, you know, you may have to spend $100,000 for a lot, but the finished value is going to be $400, not $500. And that requires that the home be a little bit smaller, that maybe it's not as amenity rich as some of the others have been in the past. And you have to think a little bit more, where's my best value, you know, for amenity packages, those kind of things built. In regards to the builder, once you get the lot kind of thought, you know, the lot itself may just determine that because that's the perfect lot. It's owned by this builder, that's who you're going with. And so that may be a factor in the conversation. If it is not, and there are times too, like say there's a bigger builder and they own, you know, the development, they may very well sell off a lot or two. If they're familiar with that builder and they agree that they would fit in that development, you know, you're not going to find, you know, a higher end builder is not going to sell to a low end builder. And that's not, I'm not saying that negatively, because here's builders. Builders go from custom. At the very top end, they're like high quality, custom, do exactly what anybody wants. Maybe even an architect is involved, and they're building somebody's dream home. And then the scale slides all the way down, not in price, but in value. It slides all the way down to what they call square footage builders. And those are people who get you square footage for an affordable price. In essence, in what you'd like to believe, and I think in most cases, the insides of that, the framing, the foundation, those kinds of things tend to be pretty close to the same. We all have a set of building standards that they have to achieve, and so those things should be relatively close. Now, framers differ. One of the hints that I always liked, and it's not real popular now, but there's still a few out there, is if the builder is the employer of the framer, that's really good. Doesn't happen as much as it used to. Now there are a lot of subcontractors, but the people who the builder actually employs in their company will do better work, generally speaking, than subcontractors who the builder hires to do the work. Okay, so it's just a rule of thumb that you can use, that you're talking to a builder or talking to an agent of a builder, say how much of the work is done by employees versus subcontractors, because the builder has much more control over the employee, and it may be, I've known of cases where there are subcontractors, but these two crews work exclusively for this builder, doing framing, doing drywall, doing whatever. So those are just little hints that you might think about and work with in making that decision. But when you go to younger people who need space, who want new construction, or maybe have to get new construction because there's not the selection that we'd like to have on the market right now. So maybe new construction is, as good a value as any, but they're going to be on the low end of that. So you want to look at things at what can be done later that doesn't have anything to do with the construction of the home now. So things like decks, maybe the house, you decide you're not going to put a deck on it. All you're going to do is build that little 3 steps or 4 steps or whatever they have to have that's minimum to get out of the back of the house, down a few steps to the ground. So maybe that's the case. That's what you want at this point. Or maybe you put a smaller deck on, knowing that, okay, that 10 by 10 or 10 by 12 is going to get expanded at another level. It may be that you have that much, and then you step down onto a second deck that provides more space, and it's awesome. Maybe you don't put steps down from your deck at the beginning, because that adds an expense. Maybe you leave the steps off for a while and then add them later. So those are things you can look up. You always want to look, if you're looking for value, buy without a finished basement, and then finish that as it comes. Now, a couple of things. One we talked about earlier, bedrooms. You have to make sure that you have an idea of where bedrooms might be, if that's your end goal, your future, and then you would allow that there's an egress window at least in that area, so that can be worked with. Conversely, too, you need to know where's the bathroom set going to be, because before the basement is poured, you have to have that designed. And you literally need to have a basement designed in an area that says, okay, future bedroom here, future bathroom here, this is how that bathroom's going to work, because you have to decide, the vanity is going to be here, the stool is going to be here, the shower / tub shower is going to be here. So you need to know that, because the plumbers have to set those drains and underneath the property before you get there. So have an awareness of that. Other things about the basement is have a discussion about where the HVAC systems are going to be. I worked for a builder once before, and that builder insisted that the placement of the utilities was based on what the HVAC contractor said. Every HVAC contractor wants to put utilities, their HVAC system, right in the center of the house. because it's really easy. You know, you get good pressure with, you know, with your ductwork going half one way, half the other. It's easy to run. It's on the side of the support beam or support wall that makes it easy to run the full length of the house. That side of that support beam or support wall is also the most beneficial side to finish off of. So you got to kind of think through there, how can we get as much finishable space, get the HVAC system in a position that it functions well and still allows you to finish in the future. Whether that be, we know we're going to have a ductwork trunk going down this side of that room. Okay, that's fine. You at least know that. But to have the furnace, I had one literally that it was a walkout sliding glass door, and when you walked in the sliding glass door into the basement, 6 foot in front of you was where the whole HVAC system sat. 6 foot. It was just absolutely the worst design ever. And then the builder needed to charge more because it's a walkout, so it costs more. Okay? So we have to think through those kinds of things to get that. Deciding the builder is, you have to ask. You know, we have, you know, what, I don't know, 100 and some agents in our company right around here. Some of them represent builders. Obviously, they're going to have an affinity to that builder that they use. But talk to agents, ask them who have they sold and how did it work? How did those builders react when you're meeting with them? What do they build? Where do they build? How do they build? Are they, quote, a square footage builder, or are they a finished custom builder? So that will help you make that decision. And like I say, most of the really good lots, most of them, not all, but most of the really good lots are taken up by builders because they come online, they're out there, they're like, you know what, I want to take down these 20, you know. And the really good ones, if the developer is a builder, they'll tend to have, you know, the 2 or 3 cul-de-sac lots, the ones that are walkouts, the ones, you know, that back of trees, or the pond, or, you know, so that's just reality. And so you have to work with that. So finding out what that builder is like is going to require you to just kind of feel around a little bit and see how it works. You can also, if you're looking at a plan, you can also go talk to a couple of different builders and have them bid it out. Make sure you're doing apples for apples. When you do that, every time you have a new construction house, I got to throw this in, make sure you know. Every time you do that, whether it's from a custom built right from scratch all the way to one that's basically completely finished, you have plans and specs. And you have to have them, see them, understand what they say. I heard one not long ago where they had a plan and they looked at the plan and they signed off on the plan. The builder then did whatever they wanted. On the plan, they hadn't said, where are the floor coverings and where do they end at? Is this wood? Is this carpet? How's, you know, this work? So they start going to find out what, you know, pick out and selections and that kind of stuff. And they go to the supplier and they find out that only this little space is actually tile or wood or whatever it was, and the rest of it's all carpet. The model they saw was all engineered hardwoods. Other question to ask, if you ever show a model, make sure you know exactly what is an upgrade in that model. And if you really like that model and you want your house to be that model, then you put built like this address, this legal description. Include that. Don't try to fine-tune the details and take the chance of missing something. Allow the builder to figure that out. They have all of the pick sheets from that build. Okay? So make sure that when you're doing that, that you're very specific about what you want and where you want it. Okay? So that's the process. Some things I want to make sure that you ask, and again, I can't emphasize more. Plans and specs. You need to know everything, and so does the buyer. They need to know. Good builders will tell you what's under the concrete, what's behind the walls, what type of furnace is put in there. One of the things that can happen is you get to a borderline, and I knew of one builder that did this. They were able to sell their energy efficiency package to the HVAC contractor to get a rating that allowed them to undersize the heating and cooling unit. And when the people went to finish the basement, the contractor came in and went, there's no way that that is going to pump anything into your basement. It won't work. It's undersized for the house now. But they did it by getting an energy efficiency rating that allowed them on books to downsize that heating system. And so it was what the heck was it? A 1,600 square foot ranch home. And I believe it was a 20,000 BTU. It was obvious. I mean, when I heard it, I'm like, what? You know, because you expect that kind of size. I mean, I'm thinking, well, that's got to be a 40,000 BTU anyway. You know, because you always say, okay, if it's 16 up, it's 16 down. You plan on heating the whole lower level, you know. But that wasn't the case. And these poor people, I felt so bad for them because they had to finish the basement. And they had to change the furnace after they'd owned the home for 3 years. They had to change it out. So, no names. No names. Not of the people or the builder. So, things to ask about that. It just ask about insulation. Where you know, what kind of insulation do they put? You know, the highest efficiency levels recommend sometimes as much as 20 inches in an attic. What do they put? 10 or 12? That's really pretty builder standard. You know, if they are a high efficient energy builder, they might put more because they're going for that high E, you know, on there. That I don't even know what they're called now. They used to be just the Mid-American had an energy level, and now there's like 4 or 5 different things that you can do depending on which one you want to go for. Some of them are more strict than the others. But with insulation, not only in the attic, if there's any finished space, make sure that there's insulation in the garage because you have finished space above. So that has to be at least knowledge, talked about, addressed, something like that. You always think there are places in the home that get blocked off. And you have to make sure they get insulated. Behind your tub and shower units, they are installed at framing. Are they being insulated behind that shower unit or that tub unit? Because it goes from, you know, all the way up. Are they insulating those areas to make sure that you're not standing in your tub or your shower and it's cold, you know, because there's no insulation in it. So you have to at least have an understanding of that. And then also, depending on the building style, there are homes that come out and they have what we call blind corners, where the walls come down and the 2x4s or 2x6s meet like this. And the reason they meet like that is that's how you have to have them for drywall installation. They have to be like that. There has to be an exposed side on each corner for drywall. But behind that is a square of either 4x4 or 6x6. There's a square of opening there. If that is not insulated somehow in the process, then you're going to have a cold corner. And a cold corner is what you see when you go into a home that's a little bit older and you see that discoloration in the corner. Typically it's a little bit lower, but it's right in the corner and it's a discoloration. That's because it has attracted humidity from your home because it's colder during the winter in that spot, okay? So something to think about. Another thing to think about, heat vents. Are they up or down? In other words, do they come from the ceiling or do they come from the floor? And there, you know, builders do it different ways. They may take my house has floor heat, you know, like vents on the floor, all in the lower levels or in the main level. But then there's a single large trunk line that goes up a chase to the second floor, and it is then ran up through the attic and drops out in some of the areas upstairs. Not all of them, but some of them. And some builders will drop out the whole second floor up in the attic. Now, that's not necessarily terrible, because in the summer, you know, if cold air is falling, it's really nice. It's nice to have. So it's not that it's a terrible thing, but you have to have an understanding. And then you have to make sure, are all the vents going through those unheated areas insulated very well so that you don't lose your efficiency? Okay, things to think about. Oh, one other thing, I'm sorry, I took a note here. When you're looking at lots, and we talked about orientation, configuration, slope, front to back, that kind of thing. There may be slope side to side. And so it may be that you can have one half of the back as a walkout, and then you do that, you know, some landscaping work to hold that wall up and stuff. But also you have to understand is the slope of the street will also determine which side of the house the garage is on. Okay, garage always goes on the high side of the lot. The reason for that is because that's less steps from the garage into the property. If you put it on the low side, you maybe have 4 or 5 steps trying to get from your garage level into your house level. You put it on the high side, maybe it's 2 steps going from there. And if, you know, and then you get back to the people, you know, am I building this house for somebody who thinks they're going to die in that place? Somebody my age that's like, okay, this is the last house ever that we're going to have. So, you know, maybe you need to take a look at that and say, you know, hey, 1 step max, 2 step max. So we have to find a lot that doesn't have a lot of side-to-side slope. Maybe front to back's cool, but side-to-side not so much. Okay, so you have to know something about that. Okay, so that's some things. Michelle, chime in if I haven't answered enough of your questions. Whoa, I thought you, mine just went off. I thought you were like, oh, okay. Wow. Here's some warning things that you're, number one, the big one, is always, 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 always build the house for resale. Always build the house for resale. When you start making it so specific, you know, because you're like, you know what, I don't care that 4th bedroom can be 9 by 9. It doesn't matter to me. It does to every other buyer that's going to look at your house, okay? It's going to matter. Make sure that they understand that. And it's like, well, I'm going to die in this house. Fine. So why do you want to do that to your kids? Because they're going to have to sell it, and you're going to limit them. You know, decorating is personal. Building is general. Okay, you need to plan for resale when you're building a home. So one way to start in that process, and this I should have said this at the beginning because it's for lot choice selection too, is that when you interview with people, have them list everything they envision in the property, everything. You know, how they live, where they're going to be, the lifestyle, the amenity package. You know, do they want, you know, if they are a little older, maybe they actually do want light switches and those kinds of things that are lower, you know, that are handicapped accessible type things and not so high up on the wall. So those things may be a factor. One thing I found is that most people buying a house don't care if they're up or down unless they're handicapped, you know? So if you are going to build a house and having them lower for handicap doesn't affect the resale value a lot. Making the gigantic hallways and the gigantic doors tends to have some effect on that. But, you know, little things that might make it easier is probably fine. So when you're there, list everything. Here's what I want. Here's what I dream of. Here's all that stuff. List it all out. And if it's a couple, have them make their list separately. This works in when you're interviewing a buyer to go out for resale homes too. Have both the husband and the wife or the couple, whatever it is, have them list separately what is really important to them. Once they get everything dumped on paper, have them then check off items that they could live without. We could live without that. I want it, but I could live without that. And then bring them back together and compare lists. It's amazing because once they start thinking about themselves and not the other person, it changes the list. And you'll be surprised what you find when people come back in. Both commonality and real stumbling blocks in the process. But that helps. When you do go to build, here's a couple of things that you need to understand. Size matters. The size of the house overall and the size of the rooms inside the house. Generally speaking, when you are building, there is a cost per square foot. That cost per square foot can vary from a ranch or a 2-story or a split level or a 1.5. The cost per square foot varies because of the difference in construction. But it still ends up being that you can build, you can build a 1,500 square foot ranch for this amount. Okay. Now you got to decide: do I want that massive, big, master bedroom and huge closet and master bath suite or what's they call that en suite now? So it's a new thing that's come out. Huh?
I said that's new.
Well, yes, in building it is. Or if you're my age, it is. Okay, shut up. So they have these things, and it's like, make sure people understand wherever they put square footage, they are taking it from every place else. I got 1,500 square foot. Okay, that's not going to change. So if I put 500 of that square foot in my master suite, I only got 1,000 left for the other 2/3 bedrooms, kitchen, living room, family room, dining room, whatever else is going to be there. That's all I got. That's not going to change. Okay, amenities certainly up and down, pricing that, but per square footage, you get this much money finished for this much square footage. So you have to understand that you can only apply it. And I love people go out and they're like, the master bedroom isn't big enough. They're like, okay, what is too big that we could take something away from? Well, nothing. So you mean you want a bigger house? Well, no, I can't afford a bigger house. Okay, something's got to give here. It doesn't work that way. Okay? So when you're talking to people, have an awareness of that. Here's some things that you should at least have an awareness of. When you're talking style, why? Why do they want a ranch? Why do they want a 2-story? Why do they want a 1.5? And there's all kinds of different reasons. Maybe it's a ranch you're getting, you want everything on one level. Okay, that's cool. Do you have kids? Are they a little older? Will they be going to school and then coming back sometimes? Yes. Maybe we could do something with a 1.5. Get a main floor master, a couple of bedrooms up. When they're not home, shut them down. You know, shut the heat down, shut the doors, all that kind of stuff. You're living in a smaller ranch then, okay? Do you need extra or, you know, extra bedrooms, that kind of stuff? Maybe a ranch walkout with a couple of bedrooms down finished would work well. Do you like living in the lower level as far as like finish and entertainment and that kind of stuff? A 1.5 may be a good, you know, agreement, because a 1.5 has a bigger base than a 2-story, but not as big as a ranch. Okay, so maybe that's you know, something you could agree on, that would give you enough square footage to do what you want to do. So those are thoughts, but know about style and know about why, and then know about, you know, the basement and why, the future that we talked about. We talked about building for later, so deck, basement finish, patio versus deck, steps going down, landscaping, you know, that kind of thing outside. Can you get by without having that extra piece of concrete for parking? Do you have to have that right away? Do you need to have all the trees put in your yard right away, or can you hold up? Because, you know, landscaping and garden, trees and that kind of stuff, that's literally thousands of dollars that you don't put down. Question asked, very rare anymore, but is the yard fully sodded? A lot of covenants now include that they have to be fully sodded right up front. But make sure you understand, because it's a rude awakening when you go and you're like, oh, all excited, and you go for the final walkthrough and you walk out and there's 15 foot of sod from the back of the house and the rest of it's dirt. Oops, probably should have talked about that. Okay. How are you doing time-wise? Good? Yeah, not bad. Some things that I want to make you aware of. Going over budget happens really easily when you're in the pick process. When you're far enough back in the process that you are choosing a lot of things, you're going to go over budget. It may be that up front, when you're writing on, there's a foundation in, but we love buying this house because we get to choose everything. Valid, people love it, it's awesome, okay? Have an awareness of what those people are like, and those, you know, we talked about what is included, because you might want to right up front put an extra $2,000 decorating allowance in the budget with your offer. Write it right up front, so they know they can go over, because you know from your interview that there is no way they're going to go for base grade carpet in this property. It's not going to happen. They're going to want engineered floors in some areas. They're going to want tile somewhere, you know, that kind of thing, and they want to do those upgrades. You probably should know about that up front, and at least try to stave off and say, well, let's put an extra $2,000 or $3,000 into the budget, so that you can go out and it doesn't become every meeting you have, you're trying to decide whether it's worth it or not. Because lighting packages, they think, oh, well, it's got a whole lighting package, I should be able to select within that. No, it has a builder's lighting package. That means that it has a set of pretty inexpensive pieces virtually everywhere in the house, except for maybe one signature piece. And that's either in the family room or the dining room or, you know, the front entry or whatever it might be. There's one signature piece. So have an awareness of that, because if you make those selections in the builder process, the builder puts all that up because the electrician's there. So they'll put up the ceiling fan for you. Because one of those things that you can save is, you know what, in my 3-4 bedrooms, put in the absolute base lighting that you possibly can. Cheapen that up to, you know, because it's a switch, it turns on a light, I'm good with that for now. And then down the road, you know, you find that ceiling fan that's on sale for $69 that would have cost you $170 to have the builder install. Go buy that $69 ceiling fan and put it in as your budget allows going down the road. You can save $1,500 on doing things with lighting after the fact versus right up front with the builder. Okay, so that's things to think about. To keep yourself from going over budget, discussions to have up front. Same thing with carpeting, floor coverings. Windows are going to probably be determined most times by the builder and the pricing. But take a look at them. You know, that may change your mind on builder, because most of them just put a set in, and some of them are really inexpensive, really. You have to look, if you have a 3-bay window, okay, 3 slots going in there, is it framed in between and there's 3 individual windows, or is it a huge 3-window piece? And if you go and you pick one of those center sections of the window and just kind of lean on it a little bit, you'll find that they move in and out when they have those cheap, you know, they're like 8 foot, 9 foot wide, you know, and 4 foot, 5 foot tall, and they're this gigantic thing, and they're like, oh, look at all the light it lets in, and it's amazing, and all that stuff. And you kind of push on it a little bit, and it moves because there's no stability in that window framing. Just thoughts. Really do the best you can with people. If they're building a dining room because they have a big dining room table, maybe it's better. Do they really sit at the dining room and eat? Are they the repository of everybody that comes for every holiday and they need that? Are they as good to have some finish in the basement and everybody eats there? You know, talk about that a little bit, because I've seen people literally build a house for furniture. And I'm like, they're like, but our bedroom set has these 2 gigantic tables on the end, and you're like, it's furniture, you know? I see people that build their house and they base that on their 18-year-old. At least have the discussion. At least have the discussion. You know, I know that you'd love to have your 18-year-old stay with you until they're 35. It's unlikely that that's going to happen. Okay, that's unlikely. So do you really want to make that room so that it's got its own bathroom and it's got a, you know, it's a bigger closet, it's got all that kind of stuff for somebody who's going to live there for another year, go to college, hopefully, you know, get a job, move on, that kind of stuff. Or if they're like millennials now, maybe they come back for a couple of years. But is that where you want to spend your square footage in a room that'll likely be closed up most of the time down the road? So something to think about, at least have the discussion. Here's a few things you're going to talk about. Over budget, of course, you've got to watch out for that. One of the things when you talk about over budget and they're trying to do the budget and you're looking at what you can spend and that kind of stuff, don't forget that right now we still are at record low interest rates. If they're going to borrow money, now is a good time, and borrowing it with the main loan is a good way to do it. Getting a second will increase the interest rate for, you know, down the road, that kind of thing. So take a look at it. Are they being overly conservative in their financing of what they want? So take a look at it. You get what you pay for typically in new construction. You usually get what you pay for. There's some variables. I mean, there's some builders that maybe give you a few more amenities than others do. You'll find that a lot in some builders that are a little bit larger because they have package deals with suppliers. You may get an amenity or two. I mean, maybe it's a garage door opener that the other one doesn't include automatically. Maybe it's a better set of appliances because they buy directly from the supplier versus going to one of the, factory direct or Nebraska Furniture Mart. If they're large enough, they go directly to the company. When I worked for Rutland, they were directly with Whirlpool. They didn't deal with an intermediary. They like Whirlpool, they had a set and they would send them. And when Whirlpool had an end of a unit, they would send them 20 or 30 sets of washers and dryers because they wanted to get them out of their inventory, and they were discontinued. They worked fine. They were warranted. Everything was wonderful, But they'd send them, and we'd have this gigantic garage somewhere stuffed with 20 sets or 30 sets of washer and dryer that were going in the future. Okay, so you may get things better that way. So, but generally speaking, you get what you pay for. Another adage that I like is let professionals do it. Let the professionals do the work, and especially let the professionals finish. Okay. I used to do a thing called President Homes, was where people bought land, put in their foundation. We helped them design their home, and then we sent down framers and they framed it, and from that point on it belonged to the seller, and they finished it all themselves. And I saw people that thought, well, shoot, I can do that drywall, that's easy. And you went in afterwards and you're like, wow, you did all the drywall, didn't you? Because it's hard finishing drywall. You can orange peel it with, and get rid of some of the imperfections and stuff, but you got to do it the right way. If you want to knock down ceiling, you better know what you're doing, because that's an art form, So let professionals do things. That's important, and finish definitely matters. When it comes to the finished product, the drywall finish, the trim, those kinds of things. Really consider that. Utility of the home, we talked about that a little bit, but in your discussions with them early on, you just have to talk to them about how do you live? How do you live? Because maybe it's, function is the epitome of what they need. They need a kitchen that functions, because they're in and out, they gotta go, things are happening. Mom and dad both work, they got 4 kids. They're in, they gotta go. They don't sit around in the kitchen and like, oh, this is so beautiful. They like, we need a kitchen that gets stuff done. Maybe it's that you need 2 ovens. I don't know, but at least interview them to see how they live. When you're looking at things, you're talking to a builder, know what change order procedures are. They vary with every builder. Some are lenient, some are hardcore. And a change order, it may be that a change order after a certain date, it costs you an extra $150 to $250 just to have the change order. That goes in that says we want this instead of that, even though it's not in yet. So have an awareness of that and make sure that you get everything included right up front. So the types of floors, the types of walls, the paint in there, those types of things need to be decided right up front prior to you closing off that plans and specs meeting. Because typically, the second they start building, the change order system comes in place. Because, and there's some reality to that, is like they go out, they start going, they're ordering right at the beginning. They got a permit pulled, foundation guys are going to be there, framers are set, wood is ordered, they've ordered for trim, floor is like within the next 30 days, all the floor coverings are ordered on, the cabinets are ordered, all of that has to happen. And so doing as much upfront and making all the decisions that you possibly can early on and upfront will make a difference. But just be aware of if something happens. And for goodness sakes, don't let your people go out every day and talk to the contractors, because they're subcontractors. If you go tell them, and I've seen this happen, you go out and you're like, you know what, actually, I need that wall moved over a foot this direction. The subcontractor may very well do it and charge you for it. That's how it works. You gave an order to somebody to do something. They did it because you told them you're the owner. Now, now it got changed. Some builders will just freak out if you talk to their subcontractors because they're not decision makers, they're doers. So you have to be aware of that. One last thing, and your worth can be felt in little things like this. We've talked about the lot and the orientation and the types of house and the way it goes and putting it together and all that kind of stuff. There's a couple of little things that really make a difference. One, garage. 2 foot on a garage is amazing what difference that makes. Be aware of that, I mean, if your garage is 22 feet deep and 22 feet wide, and you can make it 24 foot wide without a whole lot more cost at the beginning, that's huge. That lives so much better. Have an awareness of that. So that'll help. When you talk, there are times that you get a chance to go through, okay? You get a time when all of the framing's done and that kind of thing, you get what's called an electrical walkthrough, or you should. And on the electrical walkthrough, that's where you go in and you place outlets and that kind of stuff. The builder is going to tell you where they have to have outlets to do a minimum, because code requires that there be outlets within certain distances. If you have a wall that's a certain length, you have to have an outlet in that wall or right in the corner by that wall. So they'll tell you those kinds of things. Think about those for one thing. Do you need an extra outlet somewhere? Think about where you're going to have TVs and stuff, because now we're elevating plug-ins and that kind of stuff, and cable hookups and that. We're elevating those things so that you can do that. It was a big deal. We put shelves in the corner, to hold those TVs and stuff. Now we got to think about where are we mounting them? Above the fireplace, on the off wall, where's that going to go? So you have to think about that. Here's a couple of little things that I love that you can talk to people about. Do they decorate for Christmas? Do they like that? Do they like putting lights on the outside of the house and on the tree in the front yard? Is that really important? If it is, maybe you should think about a couple of soffit plug-ins, a couple of soffit receptacles that you can put in so there's not all the extension, like ours comes down from the corner, goes in through the garage and to the back wall and all that stuff, okay? So maybe that's really cool, and if you have that, maybe inside the front closet of the house, you put a switch for those 2 outlets so you can turn them on and off. How cool is that? It doesn't cost that much money at the time. You're talking it's probably $225. We'll put 2 soffit outlets in and a switch in the closet. How cool is it that you have that? How cool that you have a plug-in on the top of your cabinet, especially if you have the cabinet that's offset different levels, and maybe you put plug-ins up there for lighting, and maybe you even switch that plug-in too. Whoa, under cabinet lighting, how cool is that? What about underneath the base of cabinetry where you run the rope lighting, on that, and then bathrooms and stuff. So when that's on, all it does is illuminate a little bit of floor area. Pretty cool stuff. Think about, is there going to be a cool tree out in the front? Maybe they should run an outlet box to the base of that tree so that you can plug in and decorate that tree. Is there something on the back? Maybe you need 2 outlets on your deck because it's a big deck and you want that. Water spigots, are you going to have one in the garage? Or just the standard 2, one on the front, one on the back? Things to think about. They may not make a single change, but your value in the process is going to elevate beyond, because they'll be like, oh, I never thought about that. It's like that commercial where their head blows off with the purple dust coming out. It's like that. It really is. It makes you valuable, okay? Now, One last thing, and then if there is any other questions, we can talk, because we're basically out of time. One of the best things that I ever did, because I don't decorate, that's not me, that's not what I know. I build, I organize, I set, rooms up for flow and that, but I don't decorate. I don't understand the process of focal points and elevation changes and all that kind of stuff that they do. The best money I ever spent on a new construction was that the builder, pretty decent builder, built good money, had a decent amenity package, but all he did was send you to the store to pick out floor coverings, to the store to pick out countertops, to a chart to pick out paint colors, siding colors, that kind of stuff. You just went and did that. So I contacted a designer. I was going to use my stager, and she told me, no, I don't do that, but call this person. And so I called that person. It cost me just under $400. That person started with them, did a short interview, and then followed them to every appointment. I think they had 4 maybe, to every appointment, and coordinated it from beginning to end, because you have the outside, which is stone colors, probably, and paint or vinyl siding colors, roof color. Those all have to look kind of good together. Everybody's driven by that house and you're like, oh my God, what were they thinking? Okay? And then those colors tend to carry inside a little bit, and you get cabinetry, permanent. Make sure you pick what you like. Countertop, permanent. Pick something you like. Backsplash, pretty permanent. Make sure it matches. And then you're into floor coverings, paint, those kinds of things. Maybe there's an accent wall, whatever. But that $400 was the best money I've ever spent in doing a new construction. I took it out of my pocket and I was glad to do it. And they were thrilled to death. Okay? Any other questions? Have you guys got any questions? Anybody online still have anything that we can talk about or ask about, anything like that? Okay. I hope like crazy that you guys got something out of this and it give you some ideas to work with. It's not a be-all type thing. It's just some ideas that will make you better at what you do when you go to talk to a builder. And sometimes the builder will be like, what the hell? And then they're like, oh, okay. Because, builders typically think we're dumb as a box of rocks. I mean, that's what they believe, because they're not, so you have to be. But if you start portraying yourself as working with and for the buyer and working with the seller, the builder, that builder may call you someday. Go, you know what? We were looking for somebody to represent us. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.